But I want to thank everybody for coming out for the last session of Defending the Faith series. So, has anybody gotten a chance to get any conversations over the past couple weeks? Has anybody had anybody someone confront their faith? Oh, Eric's going to take us through the recap real quick of the different things we've learned over the past couple weeks.
So I just to share, I did have an incident go by this past week where there was another disciple where I actually had to kind of get on. There's several Facebook groups where it's like, oh, if you're your disciple when type groups, and there's the Berean group and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, well, one of these groups, someone had posted a picture. It was very political focused, but it was very divisive against Christianity because it was Jesus on one side. They had like 3 pictures of Jesus, and underneath had Jesus saying one thing, and then the next one was the GOP leaders and this how they were totally doing the exact opposite, and I went into the kind of the Columbo tactics, like what do you mean by this, and the Republicans are terrible people, and I'm like chances are half the people are conservative, like statistically. I said half the people half the people half the Christians probably voted for Donald Trump and things like that. And he'd kind of gotten into this, well, it's he's just lying to the people, and this is he's not really Christian, and he just did that to get power, and he said something about not how he doesn't believe in God or something, and I was like, well, I'm going to show you something, and I want to get your take on it. And it was a video of I don't know if you guys ever saw, it was in 2008, I think, Democratic National Platform, where they had their convention meeting in this giant stadium, and this Christian minister had gotten up, and he mentioned that he wanted to reaffirm that God was going to be a part of their platform, and they voted 3 times. If you watch the video, it's quite jaw-dropping, because like most of the people voted to kick God out of their platform, and the guy took the vote 3 times because even the guy doing the vote was like stunned, and he had, even at the end, he basically kind of says the motion failed, and they keep God on their platform anyway, but people were like booing and all kinds of stuff, and it's just like, whoa. And I put the link to the video on there and asked him what he thought of that, and then he replied back. He's like, "Oh well, God shouldn't be a part of anybody's platform and things like that." Then I'm like, "No, what was the point of your picture?" Because you're using Jesus to attack Republicans. If he's not supposed to be part of any of that, then why did you use him? So anyway, and then I just walked away. so that's all I gotta do. So anyway, but did I change his mind? I don't know. Hopefully it made him think. Put that rock into his shoe virtually because it was online. But as far as recapping these things, we have the first Columbo tactic. Which, what do you mean by that? You're breaking down. You're asking what somebody believes, and then the second one, how did you come to that conclusion? Then you go into the why. Why do you believe that way? Like what is it that caused you to come to that conclusion? Like usually a lot of good personal stories people share. Tend to hear a lot of things like words like hypocrisy and childhood and all kinds of stuff. Evolution, like those are popular answers to Columbo tactic 2. And then of course the third one, which is have you ever considered? And this is where you get a chance to sort of throw in something that the person hasn't really touched on or hasn't really thought about to help kind of sway them into the direction of thinking that they should be looking at when it comes to these arguments. So it gives them something to look at too. Have you ever considered this? And the answer is yes, then great. It keeps the conversation going. If they say no, then maybe the challenge is to have them read up more about that and then come back and finish the conversation later. Suicidal views. When we get into the actual tactics stuff, suicidal views are any view that holds up or can't hold up amongst itself, just its own claim. It's just not possible. Things like there is no truth, there are no moral absolutes, you shouldn't judge people, and don't push your morals on me. It's like God himself can't make these statements true. It's like square circle in the car. And all you have to do is point out the problem, and you're done. So the suicide tactic, really what it comes down to is the law of non-contradiction. So, and that's kind of an example of it can't be true because they clash against each other. Sibling rivalry, it offers two opposing ideas that don't go together when they're looked at. For example, Chris used the example last week, is Gandhi in heaven? Or could a Muslim that believes in Jesus as the Son of God be saved? They've taken two claims and trying to mash them together and just showing that they don't really go together. Those two claims aren't designed to do that. Taking the roof off is basically when you take the person's word as truth and you take what their claim is and you take it a drive for around in a while, and then you come to a conclusion that ultimately will happen, even if it's absurd, but it's something that actually could happen. We've got a video where you're going to see somebody taking the roof off here in just a minute. It's an actual recent example. Then there's the Rhodes Scholar tactic, often called the fallacy of the expert witness. This is where, the Pope comes into your job and tells you you're doing a terrible job, even though he's probably never worked in your field a day in his life. So, people don't just need to be believed just because they're important or famous. They still have to answer what they believe and why they believe it. Mm-hmm. The bedtime story tactic. This is often a response to the Rhodes Scholar. If you do confront somebody who's a Rhodes Scholar, they tend to throw out a lot of fancy stories instead of actually providing logical arguments or facts. And of course, a good rebuttal is, that's a great story, but you didn't answer the question, or it's a oftentimes the story itself is a distraction from the original point. And then there's just the facts tactic. That's one where you yourself need to be immersed in a particular topic, be well versed, understand what's going on, keep up with the times, make sure you understand the arguments. And, it's something where if you present just a ton of facts, your competition is less likely to come up with a rebuttal because they have to prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you have all this proof in front of them, they won't even usually know where to begin. And you can take people aback by that, especially on certain topics, things like abortions, things like homosexuality, things like evolution, things like moral relativism, like studying these things out and the root causes of a lot of these things. You probably stand a more chance of swaying people's opinions of what they're talking about using just the facts than probably anything else. Of course, then there's the sticks and stones argument, just a bunch of trash talk, attacks the believer and not the belief. Christians are stupid. Christians are hypocrites. It's like, yeah, but Christianity isn't stupid. Christianity isn't hypocritical. And the simple way to combat that is just with the word "so what." Then, of course, there's a steamroller tactic where someone starts aggressively going after you, like with claim after claim after claim after claim after claim. You don't even know where to jump in at. You're kind of like, it's kind of like you see the jump rope going. You got to wait to jump in. It's kind of like that. And someone comes hitting you, and they expect you to answer for all this, and then when you can't, they're like, "See, you don't know anything." It's like they didn't give you a chance. So obviously, you have the three things of dealing with someone who's in a steamroller against you, who's trying to hit you up with many things, is basically to stop them, say, "Hey, how about this? You're making a lot of claims here. Why don't we just stick with the first one, and you give a claim. Let me, you say something, I'll say something, and we'll go back and forth, and hopefully we can get a good conversation in." Because we see this a lot on TV where a news host will just run over somebody and then it's like, "Oh, time to go. Thanks for coming on." And next, Sean Hannity on next, whatever. I don't know, but so the first point is to stop him, so you can kind of set some ground rules. If they keep doing it, then the second thing you got to do is you got to shame them. You got to stop them again, lay out the rules specifically as you guys define, and then wait for them to respond back with they're going to follow the rules of engagement. And if they don't do it, then just end the conversation there. If he's, a lot of times they'll be like, "Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that." But then let's say keep going, and then they start to do it again. Then just leave them. Let them have the last word. Just give them that satisfaction. Because wisdom dictates not wasting any more time on someone like that, and not because not everyone deserves an answer, because not everyone is looking for one. And there's a few examples of this in the Bible where Jesus deals with people who are the Pharisees and Sadducees who are trying to hit him with a lot of different things. So, here's where kicking off to Chris here.
Okay, so we're getting ready to start looking at some real-world scenarios. We're going to break things down. We're going to talk about, what is the claim and what tactic would you use on these type of things. So we're going to start off with the first one is a picture. What's wrong with this picture? Too stupid to understand science? Try religion. It's a pretty bold claim. I usually find the opposite to be true. Too stupid to understand religion? Try science. What does that do? What is this? What seriously, what is this?
What type of argument?
What type of argument is this?
Is it sticks and stones?
It is sticks and stones. It's name calling. What does this have to do with the teaching of science or religion? Nothing. What's the argument? Nobody smart is religious. Now, does that claim hold water? Is Einstein not smart enough for you?
Yeah.
I mean, he came to a conclusion that there was a God who created the universe after discovering the theory of relativity. He didn't believe that it was a Christian God because he had a problem with the existence of evil. But he was religious nonetheless after that because he knew that the Big Bang needed a Big Banger. So like I said, it's just name calling. Yeah, whatever. And I like finding pictures like these because it's like, what's the claim? And usually it's just sticks and stones. Mm-hmm. So we've got a video. This is an interesting video. It's from a TV show. It's on the Fox News Network. It's the Tucker Carlson. He does a lot. He does a lot of steamrolling sometimes. Like you can tell because I actually heard one guy is like, "Oh, you're steamrolling me." I'm like, "Yes, he is." And it's funny that they'll point it out. But this is dealing with a fairly new topic. And when I saw this, I realized immediately that he was not only using Columbo tactics fairly, he was also utilizing other tactics as well. And I want us to watch these. I'm probably going to stop and pause this a couple times because he makes some really good points, and it really drives it all home. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Well, last May, the Obama administration announced a new rule requiring every public school in the country to let transgender students use whichever bathroom or locker room match their preferred gender identity. Well, yesterday, the Trump administration retracted that rule, saying that bathroom policies like these are state issues and shouldn't be set by the decrees of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Zach Pecanis is a senior advisor to the DNC and helms their Trump war room. This morning on Twitter, he called President Trump a monster for reverting to the policy in place just 1 year ago. He joins us now. Zach, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, I think there are two sides to every debate, including this one. What I was so struck by was your tweet where you, and I'm reading it now, I woke up feeling so sick to my stomach about the Trump White House's attacks on vulnerable LGBT kids. These people are monsters.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Sticks and stones. These people are monsters. Name calling.
And I thought to myself, was Obama attacking vulnerable LGBT kids a year ago before putting this policy into place? He spent 7 years as president and didn't do this. Was he a monster attacking LGBT kids during that time?
Well, I mean, what we know is that he put these protections in place. And let's be clear about what we're actually talking about. This is guidance that was provided to schools that schools wanted and asked for. And it's for a very specific reason. They wanted to create a safe environment for all the kids in their school, and they wanted to avoid Title IX lawsuits. I mean, that's what's so mind-boggling about what the Trump administration did today. He took away practical guidance to school administrators and principals who were looking to create this safe environment and were looking to not get sued for Title IX violations.
I mean, those guidelines still exist on the internet, presumably, and they could look them up. It's not like they're disappearing from the English language. And so I still am waiting for the answer to my question, though. It took the Obama people 7 years to do this. And that's fine with me, but I'm not the one calling people monsters for pulling them back. So, like, are you giving President Obama a pass for not acting on this sooner?
I'm giving President Obama extraordinary praise for taking decisive action to protect these vulnerable kids.
Decisive action 7 years later. Anyway.
and I am saying that Donald Trump is not only a monster, but he's a coward.
What was that? Sticks and stones, right? Yeah. Monster and a coward.
We're talking about somebody who is so emasculated by Vladimir Putin that he has to.
All right, I'm going to have to stop you there because now we're getting off in a crazy world.
That he has to come back and pick on vulnerable kids. Okay. These kids are the most vulnerable children in the country.
Slow down, Zach. Let's get to the core of the issue. Do you mind? Look, I get that I'm never going to get you to say that Obama should have done it. That's fine. Let's move from the.
If you kind of notice, he's also kind of using the fairy tale tactic where he's appealing to their the story of these children. It's the safety of the children is what he's pointing to. It's like, but there's a second part. It's like, who wants to battle against safety against kids? Everybody wants kids to be safe, right? But why? Why is what else is there to this argument? And he's dodging it, but he picks it up. Tucker picks up on it here.
Politics to the science, because this policy has implications that go far beyond bathrooms and locker rooms. The core question is what constitutes male and female. And the implication of these guidelines that Obama put in place is that a man is someone who says he's a man, and a woman is someone who says she's a woman. You get to decide your gender. There's no biological anchor to sex anymore. It's all determined by the individual. So my obvious question for you is, how do I know if a person's male or female? Is there some other absolute standard that people have to meet to be male or female, other than what they say?
One's gender identity is enough to show what gender they are. And so if you're confused about that, I mean, I leave that, to your level of enlightenment and
No, it's not about enlightenment. It's not about moral status. This is a real question because there are all kinds of institutions in American life that function on a sex-segregated basis. Women's college, sports, both professional and amateur, prisons. And so you're telling me that I can play on a women's sports team when I say I'm a woman.
What we are saying is that in this guidance with public schools, which and the vulnerable kids that are there, that there are specific guidelines that these teachers and these supervisors and these principals asked for in how to create safe.
Okay, but now you're going back to the first question. You just said a second ago that
that is what we're talking about.
No, let me take you back 3 sentences. When you said gender identity is determined by the person who possesses it. That's almost exactly what you said.
Correct.
And I'm saying there are massive implications of this that everyone is either too dumb or too embarrassed to explore, but let's do so now. If your sex is what you say it is, then what prevents me from playing on a women's field hockey team? What prevents me from getting convicted of a felony and demanding to go to a women's prison? And it's a real question.
It's not a real question.
Why is it not a real question?
It's not a real question because it is pretty absurd, and there are no other examples.
Why?
Because there are no examples of this. What
do you mean?
There's no examples of this, but something else he said just before that. He said this is absurd, and what he's doing is taking the roof off tactic, because he's taking exactly what he's saying, and he's taking it for a ride, and he's coming to absurd conclusions. And if there's something wrong with the conclusions turn out to be absurd, then the statement has to be there's something wrong with the statement. So when people start saying that, like, the taking roof off tactic is also called reductio ad absurdum, which is reduced to the absurd. And so he's playing that very well, because it is taking it to illogical conclusions. But he also says that there's no examples, and he's going to say it again here in a second. There are no examples, but I actually have one from a couple days ago. Transgender killer moved from female prison after sex with inmates. So what happened was there was a prison inmate in the UK who said, you know what, I'm a girl. And guess what? Because they had to be tolerant and fair and completely, denounce facts, they moved this guy to a female prison, and he ended up assaulting several females sexually, and finally, and it's funny, they actually still call him a she, and they finally moved her back to the male wing. It's like it's sincerely absurd with what's going on with this kind of stuff. It just completely defies logic. So anyway, we're going to continue.
I'm sorry, but there are no examples. This is the same argument about saying that this will allow sexual predators to go into women.
I'm not making that
bathrooms.
argument.
Yes, but you are making that argument.
Okay, what I'm saying is, I just want to know what the standards are. I'm not actually making any claims. I'm merely asking a question, and I want you to answer.
Yes, the standards are
Is there a scientific standard? Because when you deal with questions of biology, that is a species of science. So what's the scientific standard? I'm a scientist. I want to know if you're a man or a woman. How do I find out?
Look, these are discussions that I encourage you to have with someone who is transgender, and they can come and talk to you about.
I don't need that to speak to a trans. I can speak to you because you think about the stuff for a living. So it's a very simple question.
Yes.
I want to know if you're a man or a woman. I'm a scientist. How do I find out?
Your gender identity determines your gender.
So it's interesting here, because what he's saying is, over and over again, is that you are the authority. You are the authority of what you are. So when he's asking for, Tucker's asking for, the authority in it, and he keeps saying, well, it's just up to you. It's just up to you. That's his argument. It's just up to you. So you don't have to ask a scientist. You just ask the person, because they're the authority.
Period.
Okay. So should someone who looks like me, I look like a man, you think I was a man, I say I'm a woman, and I demand to play in a women's sports team, I demand to go to women's college, I demand a small business administration loan for women-owned businesses. That's a real thing. That's a billion-dollar question, for real. Can you turn me down if I say I'm a woman?
The question that is on the table right now is about Title IX.
Let's not
and
be-
about guidance. No, but you want to go off on
Title
these
IX
tangents.
applies. It's not a tangent.
you
Title IX
wanna go
applies
off on these tangents?
applies and was created
Yes.
around the question of women's sports. So, as a apparent man, if I say I'm a woman, is that enough? Do I meet the standard as a woman to play in a women's sports team? That goes right to Title IX. Don't dodge the question.
I'm not dodging the question. This is something the Supreme Court is going to be looking at next month. And yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay.
Gender identity determines one's gender.
Let me ask you this.
Period. And this is a matter of civil rights.
Is there science behind this? Because I know that I'm often
absolute
getting
science.
really.
Absolutely science behind it.
I want you to name a single scientist, just one, who says you can determine your own sex just by saying so. Can you name one scientist who says that?
I'd be happy to send you many after.
A scientist who said you can determine your own sex. An actual scientist, like someone who went to college.
Listen,
Are you serious?
You clearly have some issues around this.
It's not an issue at all. I have questions
like.
that you can't answer. And you're instead throwing things like you're not enlightened. I'm asking you a sincere question. What's the science behind this? And you're deflecting. Why?
I'm simply not deflecting. This is a matter of settled science, and it is something
What's the
that.
science exactly? That you are what you say you are? Could I change my race too? And don't dodge that question. That's a real question.
No, you cannot.
Why?
Change
Why
your race.
can't I change my race, but I can change my sex? What's the difference?
It is not about changing. It is not about changing.
why
This is
isn't
about
it?
inherently who people are.
Really?
And-
What if I
and the
say I'm
fact that
inherently
you-
of another race? Who are you to say I'm not?
I mean, again, you're getting into these silly hypotheticals.
It's not silly at all. 2 years ago, nobody thought you could change your own sex. And you're saying it's settled science.
One that is simply not true. We have had transgender protections in this country
But
for
you haven't explained what
for
transgender
decades.
is. You're just saying it's whatever we say it is.
Look, you want to go into this in this right-wing pseudoscience.
It's not right-wing at all. It is.
It absolutely. It's
pseudoscience, right? You name.
No, what you-
I
what
will
you
give
are-
you
what you are talking about.
$1,000 if you can find any scientist, like an actual biologist at an accredited American college, willing to come on this show and say, here's the science, here's the state of play of biology 2017, name your sex, and that's what it is.
I don't understand.
You can't.
I
There's
don't
no
understand
science.
why you won't answer the question
answer
about
any
why.
question.
So what's he doing here? Does anybody realize what he's doing here? Why you won't answer the question? He's saying, well, you won't answer the question. He's reversing the burden of proof. He's trying because he knows that if he can ask the question, he's in control of the conversation. That's all he's doing here. By the way, there was no question.
Question always.
Excellent. Why shouldn't schools who are asking for it get guidance on how to create safe environments for all their kids?
I would say
Why is
that
that?
guidance exists. It floats on the internet, and if it's merely guidance, then the federal government needs no more to do with it. They could say, here's our guidance.
Well,
He's saying if you say guidance is just an opinion, if it's just your opinion, then the government needs to stay out of it because it's just an opinion.
You're undermining your own argument, which was weak to begin with.
If it is as simple as that,
Okay.
then why do you care so much?
Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm actually enjoying this, but I want you to produce the scientist, just one. And let's make it Harvard, and I'll give you $1,000. And I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just asking the question.
He's confronting him with reality, and that's something you can't defy. Remember, we talked last week that people are the type of people that God created, and anybody who denies that is living in some sort of contradiction. This is the contradiction. So to deny the truth of reality. So okay, so what we're going to do now is it's your turn. Fantastic. So Purdue and IU, I don't know if you guys got this. Yesterday I sent to Ross and Josh 2 different types of situations to print out for you guys. I don't know if they happen to provide those to you today or not. If not, we're going to you can take a small break because we're going to come back and talk about some of these things. But we're going to do some handouts and let people go over different scenarios, and we're going to talk about different things. So here are the list of the tactics you guys can refer to. We're going to go ahead, Eric, you want to go ahead and hand these out?
Everything except the bottom 2, I think those are the ones
That we sent to the campus, and we'll hit those up. There's 4 of them. If you guys want to split into like 4 groups and to talk, we'll hand each one of you guys things. And what we want you to do is find out the claim, find out what's wrong with the claim, and then basically which tactic you would use to refute these things. And I apologize for the Anne Rice one, which is being handed out right now because there's a lot to that one. Just look for specific claims. if you need to highlight them, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about what's wrong with some of these. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start off with the first claim, and this one's from one of the campuses. Actually, the first two are going to be from the campus one. So if you didn't get a chance to see this, basically what it is there was a conversation going on in the comments section of a news article where people were saying Norway has a lot of atheists, so for Americans who think that the country being atheist is evil, they probably should take a look at some of these Northern European countries. I lived there, lost my wallet on a bus, and someone traced me to my apartment to return it. Turns out she was an atheist too. And then someone else replied, it says, I know some lovely atheists. They're so focused on their lives at hand that they tend to live more honestly versus waiting for a heaven and expecting something better. So their claim is basically this: you can be good without a God. That's great. That's sure. I know a lot of atheists who are good, but what standard exactly are we measuring good by? Because again, remember, you can't have morals without transcendent morals, and transcendent morals without a transcendent moral lawgiver being God. So it wouldn't apply to everybody given any certain situation. So if someone said, well, so what if someone's version of good was bad without God?
Yeah.
Same thing. Okay. The problem is not whether or not you can be good. It's like, does it fit your worldview as an atheist to be good? Why? What's the point? There's nobody watching, so just do whatever you want. And if you want to be bad, the problem is if someone's definition of good is actually bad, they are allowed to be that way, right? They're allowed to be that way. So it really doesn't matter. It's just an opinion statement. So the next one, this is good. So there was this thing called Interfaith online, and it's one of those all-inclusive, like, hey, we appreciate all religions, the whole coexist, but the problem is it's actually more contradict type thing. It's like it's one of those things. Remember, I made the analogy of like giving someone an aspirin disguised as arsenic. But they're basically the same because they come in tablet form. They're basically the same, right? But the problem is, so here's the interfaith, and I'll talk about. I'll emphasize the highlights I put in here. Interfaith is a faith that embraces the teaching of all spiritual paths that lead us to seek a life of compassionate action. Interfaith as a faith does not seek to discover which religion or spiritual path is right. Rather, it recognizes that we are all brothers and sisters, and that at different times and different places we have encountered the sacred differently. Interfaith celebrates our differing spiritual paths, recognizing it is our actions in the world that count, so that we are called to engage the world, and to do so with compassion and love. In the past, interfaith has usually meant people of goodwill from differing spiritual paths getting together briefly for a project and then simply going home. That was worthwhile and hugely important. But today, the world needs more. Interfaith as a spiritual practice can serve as a model for how we deal with each other. Living interfaith means more than participating in an occasional interfaith service or an interfaith project a couple times a year or even once a month. We live interfaith by coming together each week to be nourished by and celebrate the wisdom and love of our varying spiritual paths, including Satanism. Anyway, and that is but the beginning. Living interfaith also means embracing the gift of interfaith within our lives and sharing that gift with the world. Sharing it without arrogance, sharing it without orthodoxy, and sharing it while respecting those whose spiritual paths may differ from our own. We share interfaith not as the right way, but rather a viable way to live in love and peace, with respect for our shared humanity and the varied spiritual paths that we take. And here's where it gets crazy. It's not an easy road ahead. True paradigm shift is never easy. And humanity has lived in shackles for a very long time by a view of the world that insists that there can be but one right belief about God, including the right belief that there is no God, and that our spiritual community should be centered around that one right belief. Interfaith as a spiritual practice involves a major shift in the foundational assumption and worldview. Why the paradigm shift is desirable? A living interfaith, an active acknowledgement, respect, and honoring of humanity's differing beliefs can be a powerful and positive influence, not only to our own generation, but the generations to follow. We can raise our children to respect the beliefs of others. So, sounds so tolerant. So it's interesting because it talks about celebrating different spiritual paths and embracing the teachings of all spiritual paths and not to discover what's actually right, celebrating the wisdom and love of our varying spiritual paths. And, it's funny that they do that, and then they tell you what you can't believe. You cannot believe that your way is right. But what if my belief is the way is right? And it's at the end, it says we raise our children to respect all the beliefs of others. Well, what if my belief is saying that it is right? Then I'm wrong. Wait, it's the intolerance of tolerance. They've misrepresented what tolerance actually means. But they believe as I do. It's like we will acknowledge your belief as long as it fits within our belief system. But if you believe anything other than we believe, then we will not acknowledge it.
Right.
It's the intolerance of tolerance, basically, is what's going on. So, those were the two campus ones. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you guys got a chance to actually get the paperwork. The next one is the Vanderbilt story. Who had the Vanderbilt story? You guys had the Vanderbilt story. So, what was the claim?
The campus groups, some of the Christian campus groups were expelling people who didn't agree, like an openly gay person was expelled from the group. He said we were discriminatory, so the college has now a non-discriminatory policy. They're looking at whether you violated that because you're not accepting somebody who doesn't believe what your group believes.
Yeah, and the specific claim, like that I was reading into, was the fact that you could have a religious organization at Vanderbilt, but you could not have specific beliefs. It's like, so, what? I mean, you can have a moral or religious group, but you can't have specific beliefs. Isn't that very contradictory? I mean, it's one of those things like, because now it's the school pushing their moral beliefs on to you guys.
Yeah.
So, but what kind of tactic would you guys use against that?
Oh. Like something about Colombo asking them, why would you have someone who don't believe that you do be part of the group?
Yep. The Colombo asking why someone who doesn't believe like you do be a part of your group. That's a fair question. For
For
sure.
example, what you were saying, just like if your college have a certain curriculum for your teaching staff to follow, what if you hire someone who don't want to follow your curriculum and do what you want? How are you going to function?
Right. How does the college function about teaching specific core beliefs if you can't teach your own? It's like it's basically it's like a suicide view. Is exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. So that's perfect. Exactly. So we're gonna go to the next one. But Jesus would forgive. Who had? Okay, you guys. So, what was the claim being made?
Well, the claim being made, it was really two claims. One
Yep.
thing that Mother Teresa was said, I would have forgiven this killer
Yep.
who was scheduled to die in the gas chamber. And the people of California, as expressed by, who was this guy, said the people have voted twice to be able to kill people. So it just seems like a statement of two facts.
Yes. Yeah. So what was going on is basically there was a convicted, I don't know if he was a serial killer, if he was just a killer, a murderer named Robert Alton Harris, who was getting ready to be put to death. And Mother Teresa had sent a letter to the governor saying, well, Jesus would have forgiven. Jesus would forgive. So what's wrong with that claim? Or what tactic would you guys use to defend against that? The law is a good one. Yeah, actually, there was an example just a couple years prior where George Bush, before he was president, was governor and put a woman who was a murderer to death, who was on death row, and people were petitioning, oh well, she's a Christian now, so you should forgive her. And his response was, I have a duty in man's court to kill this woman. God can do whatever He wants in His own court, and he's biblically right. I think it's Romans that talks about the law doesn't hold a sword for no reason. That this is something that they chose to do in life, and this is the natural consequence of that by the government. But taking Mother Teresa's claim, Jesus would forgive. This is kind of I would say taking the roof off tactic, because if you take that and apply that, okay, let's say Jesus would forgive an unrepentant Robert Alton Harris. What do we do with him? Okay, we don't put him to death. How about life without parole? but Jesus would forgive.
Yeah, right.
2 years, no, but Jesus would forgive. Well, I guess if Jesus would forgive, I suppose we should just let him go. And if that's the case, we should just let everybody go, because Jesus would forgive, right? It's kind of reducing it to absurd, because it's like that doesn't make any sense. So taking the roof off is definitely something that you want to do when it comes to something like that. So it's just kind of reducing it to the absurd. Interview with a former Catholic.
Okay, so we had this is Anne Rice, and she wrote the book Interview with a Vampire.
Yes, Anne Rice wrote the book Interview with a Vampire.
And so she was an atheist, then she became Catholic.
She was an atheist and became a Catholic.
Then this article is about her reasons why she decided to leave Christianity as a whole.
Yes, let me reiterate just so that people can. So she was a Catholic and then rescinded that. She decided she didn't want to be a Catholic anymore for varying reasons. And what was that?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in here that we can, I think,
There-
agree with.
there is-
But her conclusion is too general. So she says, basically, she thinks that Christians are quarrelsome, hostile, disputatious, and deservedly infamous.
Okay, and what is that?
Sticks and stones.
That's, calling it names.
That's, sticks and stones. Yep.
Okay, so there's some Christians who are bad people. She says, I don't believe the God of the universe would create a place called hell.
Yep.
We talked about it. I loved your argument. You want to share it?
Real quick, I'll just reiterate. So she used a sticks and stones tactic where she just kind of said that Christians were this, that, and the other, quarrelsome, hostile, deservedly infamous. Okay? And then she said that she doesn't believe in a God that would create hell. And what's
I
next?
think it's something like this, because I've had this thing where I said there are rules we live by,
Mm-hmm.
universe, and so why would God now have rules?
Yep.
And so that's how I use it in.
Yeah.
And I said that if God's rules, the world has rules, God has rules. God's rules are over the world's rules. His are higher, his are more direct, his
Yep.
are more grabbing you can hold on to. So if there are two sets, you got to choose one.
Well, and I appreciate your guys' view on that, but what have you just done? You just committed a fallacy in this.
I did.
Yep. You took the ball and decided to
Instead
defend
of-
their claim.
Yeah, versus proof.
Well, I would let her go ahead and bury herself. What did she say? What did she say almost
She said,
immediately
I
after?
don't believe the God of the universe would create a place called hell.
And what did she say directly after that?
Well, right after that in the interview, it doesn't say, but she goes on to say that I have a distaste for the church's teaching on abortion, gay marriage. So I don't know. Tell us what you're thinking.
Okay, she said in just a few things after that. She said, when I walked away from faith, I was rejecting the whole thing as the whole system of Christian belief that the remnant of people would be saved from the fire. She said, I can't believe a God who would create a place called hell. I had already come to realize that I didn't believe in the theological underpinnings of the Christian system. Rice explained, I could have kept quiet and kept going to church if it had not been for the pressure exerted by the Catholic Church was doing. Among these things, Rice cited the infamous pedophilia scandal and what she saw as a massive cover-up. She maintained that the conduct of the hierarchy was absolutely shameful. There was a total disregard of the American law, shifting priests rather than stopping them from what they were doing, she said. The Catholics have done everything they can to confuse the issue publicly. They've even stooped to the level of saying priests don't abuse more than anyone else. So what she's kind of doing is, I can't believe in a God who would create hell. But you know what? There's absolutely no justice for any of those people in the pedophilia scandal. There's no justice whatsoever. I wish there could be some sort of justice for these children.
She wants punishment, but she doesn't agree with God's punishment.
Exactly.
Okay.
She's holding on to conflicting beliefs.
So
But
would that be sibling rivalry?
it could be sibling rivalry. It's definitely a suicidal type view.
Okay.
But on top of all of this, I mean, let's just take it for what it is. She's a famous author, right? She's very famous. So this immediately could fall under what other category?
Rhodes Scholar.
Rhodes Scholar. Is she an expert in religion? No, she's not. But she's talking about religious things that she obviously does not understand, or she's not even looked into. So immediately falls into something like that. She also goes on to say she makes several claims, and we'll probably stop there for sake of time, but yeah, she does go on and say more things. It's an interesting article, but it definitely feels very Rhodes scholarly. So so the next one is GenCon the HERO. Who got that one? You guys. You guys had a lot to read too. I apologize. Like them and the Anne Rice ones are the hardest ones to get through because of how short time we have. But what is the claim being made?
The claim being made is basically that GenCon doesn't want to come if they were to sign the bill that was going to
yes.
religious freedom bill.
That's correct. GenCon would refuse to stay in Indianapolis if they had signed the religious freedom bill.
They it looks like they were like a big gaming company.
Oh yeah.
And they were pretty much saying although they respect everybody and they don't have to come if they don't believe in that, believe in homosexuality or anything like that, but we're not gonna come if this bill is signed.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I pretty much grabbed in the nutshell.
Can you tell me what exactly the bill says, or I can at least read it maybe and explain? So basically what it's saying is an open letter from the organization board convention. So it says SB 101 would allow for businesses to refuse services to anyone due to religious standards. So if for instance, if you did not want to make a cake for a gay wedding, this would basically say you're free to say no without legal repercussions.
Right.
But it's funny because the very next line says it was read as if you're gay, female, poor, Muslim, therefore I can refuse services to you.
Yep.
Is that a correct interpretation of what was going on?
Right.
That's what is in question. But what you can point that simply out as what's necessarily wrong with their claim. And I apologize for all the reading material, but what I'd kind of like to do is skip past to the very last page.
Okay.
The last page is their is GenCon's terms and conditions. Oh, this is great. So I was kind of listening to when this whole thing was going down and how many people were going to boycott Indianapolis because it's all about hatred and this and this and this and not taking into account what the law actually was about. But it was just really odd because I go to GenCon every year and they sent out it's a real shock. Anyway, no, I go to GenCon every year and they sent out these terms and conditions every year when you buy a ticket online. And it says, if you scroll down closer, but it's actually the point right next to the last point on the page says, GenCon reserves the right to refuse service to anyone. GenCon may deny entry or remove someone from the convention if their actions are disruptive to the convention or to the event team. Please handle yourselves in a respectful manner. So what is GenCon doing? They're doing the very thing that they are declaring to boycott Indiana for. I can refuse service to anybody for any reason. Ha! That sounds familiar. Anyway, wait, weren't you against that? So what tactic obviously does that fall under? Suicide tactic, right. So it's very, oh man, when I read that I was just like, I was just like,
we were at a restaurant and
oh yeah, actually we were at a restaurant that
with a
year.
bunch of people and our waiter came up and he had said something about the law or about GenCon not being there because
we dodged a bullet because Indiana is horrible, and this is coming from waiter in downtown Indianapolis. He's like, oh yeah, because Indiana was going to pass this law, blah blah blah, and I just happened to have the terms and conditions with me, and I don't know if it was highlighted or not, but I was like, it's interesting that you brought that up because I find it very interesting that GenCon sends out this letter. I said, have you ever read the terms and conditions of GenCon? No. Like, okay, I have a copy on me. Check it out. So what does that say right there? And I had him read it, and it was like, doesn't that seem kind of, I don't know, contradictory that Indiana was trying to say the exact same thing, and they were threatening to leave Indianapolis? And it really took the waiter back. He was like, huh? I never really looked at it.
Spit in our food.
Yeah, he probably went back and spit in our food. No, so. I think it was at the end of the meal or whatever, but it was just funny that he actually brought that up because I was like, this is almost like a just the facts ma'am type scenario. Like, really? Well, here's the facts of the matter. So what do you think of that now? And he had no comeback for it. Man, it looks like GenCon's doing the exact same thing he told Indiana not to do. Very interesting stuff. So so we're actually coming down to the end. What we're talking about, where to go from here. I would suggest, you guys have been thoroughly trained. You guys can take this, and you can go wherever you want with this. You could take this a lot higher. I wear this pin because I'm gold certified to teach these classes from Standard Reason. You can actually take this like a test online and become gold certified. It's actually an open book test, but I would highly suggest getting to know the material enough to actually take it without looking at the book. And the books. So I brought a couple of things. So what it is they have a three course thing that you can read. It's 6 CDs apiece. There's a lot of material, but if you guys can get familiar with this, you can basically become really familiar with the tactics, and it goes into more of like the different things you'll be dealing with as a Christian and how to defend against those kinds of things. Fantastic. I seriously cannot recommend this enough. There's also a home version, Tactics in Defending the Faith, you can actually do with a group. It walks you guys through, I think it's 6 sessions. It walks you through all these different things, and it's actually really cool because it has print off material and stuff, and one's for the person giving the thing, and then another one is for the people who are attending it. So it's really cool. And then, like I say, if you get silver and gold certified, you actually get little plaques and and the pins and stuff. It's really cool. It's a neat accomplishment. I think it's a lot of fun to do. Again, I would highly suggest it to anybody who's interested. You can always go to str.org to look. He has so much material on there. I've probably purchased most of it, but he deals with all the major issues of the day, how to deal with those kinds of things, and it's funny because he'll usually make the arguments without ever opening a Bible, and it's really fantastic stuff, because a lot of the stuff it's kind of refuting itself in a lot of ways. So if you guys are interested, I would highly suggest going there. Are there any questions or anything, or maybe we should just hold off the questions till after the class, because we're kind of going over. So I appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
This is it's been very encouraging for us. Hopefully it's been eye-opening to you guys, and hopefully you guys can take this and move forward with it. There's also the tactics book too, by the way. This whole based off of. Mine's on my digital version. They actually sell it on Amazon and the digital version, Kindle.
Yeah,
Right? That's how I got mine too. So
Thank you very much.
thank you guys. Thank you for sure.
Go get them.
Go get them. Give them heaven, and don't forget to tip the waitress.
Fatal flaw. I feel intimidated.